Jess Garrant, Director of HR Strategy at Lucy Therapeutics. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, so I've heard a little bit about your experience with Order.co and just your experience onboarding with customer support, and we will get to all that good stuff. But before we do, I think we need to start with the basics. So can you tell me a little bit about Lucy Therapeutics, your mission, and what you do there?
Sure. So we are a small biotech company out of Waltham, Massachusetts. We actually found Order when we moved to Waltham. We were in Cambridge, Massachusetts before at a location called Lab Central. And they, at that time, did a lot of our procurement. So that's actually how we found Order. But we are really looking for the key drivers in complex diseases and specifically mitochondria. So that's our main focus. And that's what our scientific team works on. So when we are utilizing the Order platform, we're actually utilizing it for a lot of our lab supplies. So it's a little bit different of an industry, I think, than Order is typically than other companies are utilizing.
Definitely. We definitely fall more in like fitness, retail, property management. Like those are definitely where or even wellness, lab,
cannabis is a big one, I know.
Cannabis for sure.
Yes.
Cannabis. And you were previously in the cannabis industry,
yes,
right? I saw on your LinkedIn.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, very cool.
Like 6 years, roughly 5 to 6 years, somewhere around there. Yeah, I'm still kind of in it with a little bit of consulting, but definitely, heavily focused in biotech now.
Very cool. And so what do you do as the Director of HR Strategy?
So my role is really, I guess it's not really limited to my job title. So in startup, because we're such a small startup, we're 13 people, and that's including myself in that headcount, you really can't do one role, right? And that's part of what has always attracted me to startups, is the opportunity to learn and grow and try different things. And it's really welcomed because somebody needs to do that, right? So my position, not only am I focusing on HR initiatives, your standard, benefits, compensation, payroll, recruiting, things of that nature, but I also have a heavy hand in our social media strategy. I do all of our LinkedIn posting. I oversee our operations associate, although she's extremely competent and really needs a little overseeing on my part, if I'm being completely honest. But it's interesting because I'm able to have a hand in a lot of different things, and that's also how I ended up spearheading this implementation. So I said, I noticed we really needed this, and we all talked about it as a group and decided to, look at some platforms. And so that's kind of like where I've fallen here. I just do a little bit of everything, which is really normal for everybody within Lucy, is we're all doing a bunch of different things and really propelling us forward towards our mission. So it's all important and all great work to be doing.
That's awesome. Definitely sounds like you wear a lot of hats. You got me when you're like, oh, I do social media. Because as a marketer, I'm like, oh, wow, like you're part marketer also? That's amazing.
Yes, I'm very lucky. I'm very lucky that they entrust me with all these things. And, I think that speaks volumes to our CEO, is she always gives us the opportunity to take on new things if we really want the challenge to learn them. So I'm very lucky that I've been able to take on wear these different hats and mess up and learn from it and move forward. So
sweet. So what were you experiencing when you said you and your team realized that you needed a purchasing solution? What was going on with trying to purchase all the different lab equipment? What did that process look like?
So it's a lot. When we came from Lab Central, they had a system there. I believe it was called Stork. I came on right as we were moving out of Lab Central to our own location in Waltham. And so a lot of it was done primarily through their platform. Everything came in, the individuals at Lab Central checked it in for us. They let us know when it was there. So it was a very non-manual process, but it was handled primarily by that third party. So when we moved to Waltham, obviously we didn't have that anymore. So we had all our vendors set up, Thermo Fisher, all these different scientific places where we're going to be ordering our actual supplies from. But there's so many of them. And that when you have multiple people that are actually ordering, especially in a small startup, you don't have one person just dedicated to that. Everyone's pitching in, like I was mentioning earlier. So when you have multiple people ordering, you really can't be organized. You can't follow budgeting. Like there's a lot of areas that you're going to end up wasting time or funds, right? And the thing to remember about biotech is you're not generating revenue. Like at this stage of where we are, we're not generating revenue, right? So sticking to budgets is even more critical. I mean, it's critical in any organization, but particularly in startups and startups that aren't generating revenue while they're building their product. So, you know, we really needed to make sure that we were staying within budget and being organized and making sure that, you know, we were following our protocols. So we had a manual process in place, but it just, right from the start, you know, your scientific team is trying to focus on science, and how can they do that if they're trying to remember the login for this and the login for that, and certain things are non-taxable, and we have all these different moving parts. So we needed a system where we could just make it easy. So we looked at quite a few, 5 total. Order was recommended to me by a colleague. And they were the clear winner. I mean, very clear winner. There was all the other systems seemed to have this one fatal flaw that was a heavy manual piece. And Order just didn't have that, you know, and it was just there, you know, there's certain things within that we can't actually utilize the platform for, but they're very minimal and they're things that you would expect. But everything flows through there, and I just knew looking at it, I said, there's no way this is going to work. This is going to cause more stress and a manual process than if we look into a platform that's cost effective and it can tie to our budget and QuickBooks and all these things that we needed it for. So yeah, lots of moving parts.
Yeah. So I'm so curious. That was a huge tease. What was that fatal flaw that you kept seeing come up in all of these other software that Order kind of circumvented?
And they were very, you know, I've been around a lot of sales for systems, and so I think I've learned how to pull out and extract that information when I'm doing, like, for example, like an RFP and you're getting a proposal, but it was doing this for the first time with this type of system. I had to really critically think, and I'm lucky again that the team we were all so interconnected and very involved in this that we were all able to ask the questions. But the flaw seemed to be the same with all of them. It was like, oh, no, this is just where you assign your budget and then you order it yourself still, and then you go, it either ports into the system somehow, or you enter it and then it filters to QuickBooks. And I'm like, but I don't understand the logic behind that. I don't even understand why a company would want that, right? To me, if you're going to have a procurement system, you're going to have a system that's going to actually order the product for you. And then if there's an issue, they're actually going to handle the return for you. And then it's actually going to flow into QuickBooks, and it's going to be one fluid process, right? So we just kept running into that same manual piece. And I will be honest, when I did the call with Order, I was waiting for it. And that's if you, I think they have it recorded, but I think we actually asked that question, like, do you actually order it for us? Because we had heard already that all these other platforms did not actually order it for you. So
yeah, it's crazy. I'm actually looking at a broad, like our competitor landscape and like what's going on in the market, and exactly what you're saying. A lot of businesses brand themselves as procurement software, where in reality, they're more so owning like the control piece. So they'll help with the approval, the budget, but they don't really want to touch the transactionary piece.
exactly.
So it's more leaning into like PO management than actually purchasing, which, like you said, that's all the time. Like finding the right thing, placing the orders, even putting in your credit card info. One customer that I was just speaking to said, like, you know how much time I just saved by not having to like check out on multiple websites every single day? Like, it's crazy.
Yes, definitely.
So it's funny to hear that was like the missing piece of like you looking at purchasing softwares and nobody's doing the purchasing for you.
Yes.
So it's pretty wild. So once you decided, okay, we finally found a system that does the purchasing for us, how amazing. What did that process look like of actually going ahead and rolling it out to the team, learning the system, and getting yourself set up in Order.co?
So it was pretty like, I think when we were talking earlier, I was saying, you know, I've done a lot of these system implementations, mostly for human capital management, HR type, HRIS and payroll systems, but this was the best implementation I've ever done. It was so, and again, for me doing this type of system for the first time, I was expecting more bumps in the road. But first of all, the utilization of the project management system that I cannot remember the name of it for the life of me, but the project management system that we got access to immediately, I loved that, because I've never seen it. It was just, you know, you go in, you check it off, right? You know where it is, and there were multiple different options. Either it was completed or it was in process, right? You could ping your implementation rep right from there. So it wasn't this, you know, back and forth in email where maybe you forgot to include someone and then you're CCing them and then they're responding to an old email, right? It's all within this project management platform. Huge plus. So there was that. We always knew where everything was. We had the weekly check-ins with Nicole, our implementation rep. You know, she just kept us in line. There was no ambiguity. There was no questions. We knew what we needed to tackle on our part before the next meeting. Myself and the team, before we hung up the call, everybody knew who was tasked with what. There was like a refresher, and then throughout the week we were putting those in and we were moving them along. And then we were actually ahead of schedule. Nicole actually joked with us. She said, "This is like, you guys are really ahead." And I said, "Well, this has been so easy. Like, it's, you know," and I think that speaks volumes to her ability, not only to the ease of actually implementing the system, but that she was very skilled at what she did. And then once we got it in and finally implemented, the next step was the training piece. And so what we did was we did a training for us first. Nicole was on a call, the implementation specialist. So it was also that level of accountability where if Nicole had said something that wasn't coming to fruition, she was there to answer for it. Now that didn't happen, but you don't see that a lot of times in implementations, right? They're like, okay, I'm handing it off. You're now going to the training team, and then you're going to your account rep, right? So Nicole was still there. She was still part of the process. And then from there, once we knew how to use the system, then myself, the operations person, our executive assistant, and our accounting manager, we actually did all the ordering first. So we wanted to learn the system, make sure we knew it. We got all the kinks ironed out before we rolled it out to our extremely busy science team. And said, hey, you know, now you can order. So that's how we started. And then when we were ready and we had everything, you know, exactly where we wanted it, we knew what the cost centers were, how we were putting in the classes, how it was flowing over to QuickBooks, and we were ready to go live, which was it was only about a 2-week turnaround, realistically, from when we went to implementation to rolling it out to our scientific team. Then they did another training for our scientific team. So it wasn't like, that's another thing that I found with a lot of these. It's like one training and you're done, right? Like, no, we're not going to do another one. There wasn't that type of resistance to help where there was, you know, we only can do one. We only have time for one. So it was nice to be able to, you know, have that time frame where we were able to learn it and then roll it out to the science team when we were sure. So it's great.
That's great to hear. And I think I was looking back at some of your stats. You guys started ordering within 10 days of signing up. Like, you already had your first order out. Like, that is huge.
Yeah,
very,
and we
very
knew we had some big ones coming up. So that's a great point to bring up too. Like, we knew we had some things that were sizable to order. And so we were able to just say to Nicole, hey, do you think we could really be there? So that way we're not holding up this order, but that we're able to put it through the platform and you know, get that entered in on like a relatively quick process. So it was nice. It's great.
cool. So just switching gears a little bit, you mentioned how you guys are a biotech company. You guys are ordering from a lab. That's not typically like who our classic order.co customer is. So I'm curious, was that a reservation at first, and how did that actually play out in the grand scheme of your implementation and setting up your account?
Absolutely. That was certainly, I will be completely honest, that was a hesitation. That was definitely a hesitation for us on our part. But I think when I was putting together the business case for this platform, the fact that there is you have your time frame where you can try it out, and then, hey, if it's not working for you, you know, you're not bound. I believe it was 60 days. I don't remember specifically, but having that ability to try out the system. First of all, it wasn't a heavy lift in terms of implementation. I mean, you guys really did everything. We gave you, you know, all of our information for our vendors, and then you guys kind of took it from there, right? But being able to actually try it out and know that we're not locked into this if it's not working out was what made the decision for us. It really was, because again, being a small biotech startup, utilizing a platform that's not specific to the industry, there is that little bit of, oh, what if we don't like it and we're stuck on this for 2 years and it's not working out for us, or whatever. You know, it really made it an easier sell for me on for my job, but it also took a level of anxiety off of myself and the team, where we weren't feeling like, oh goodness, we can't pull the trigger on this, because if it's wrong, we're really gonna, you know, it's gonna be pretty bad for us, you know. And it's just, so it was really, that was definitely a hesitation, but I think it was easily drowned out by having the option to actually try the platform fully before, you know, we're locked in, or we're not really even locked in, you know what I mean? So
100%. It definitely, like, yeah, signing a year-long contract, it's really intimidating, or 2 years, especially for a
of
startup.
course,
It's always a challenge, especially getting that approval. So knowing that you're able to say, okay, this is 100% for us, this works for us, that's huge. What manual processes do you feel like are totally off your plate now that you have the system up and running and working for you?
my favorite one is the approval process. We set up like approval limits for each of our individuals that are on the platform. It's just, you know, if there's something that comes through that, I mean, I need to approve, or one of the managers needs to approve, we get an email. So there's that piece. So we don't have to worry about something accidentally going through, or if somebody already ordered something and there may have been like a mix up in communication, we don't have to worry about that. It also is huge. I guess this is they're both my favorite, is sticking within the budget. Working in a startup, I know how critical that is, but again, I know I said this earlier, but that piece where you're not generating that revenue on the back end, it's very, 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 very critical to make sure that you're staying within your budget. And so when we finalized the budget for 2023, and we had these figures in place, it was easy to just plug them in and we get these reports. I guess that's another piece too, is like the reporting is great from the system too. So it not only filters into QuickBooks, but we can actually pull reports directly from order to see, like, you know, how much of one specific product we're ordering from one vendor, or how much we're ordering from one of the designated vendors that order has, like where we're saving money. It's just, it took pretty much all the manual processes off, except for checking it in, you know, but you can't complain about that, right?
Yeah, that part, who's gonna do that?
I mean, it does all the heavy lifting for you in
Yeah.
terms of like documentation and, you know, price matching, like all of that is just done right there. So it's really nice.
Sweet. And then I guess last question for you. What advice would you have to another biotech startup that's saying, hey, our purchasing is getting a little bit overwhelming. We really are, you know, everyone's wearing a lot of hats. We can't all be wearing like such a heavy purchasing hat. What would you say to them?
Well, I would say consider your return on investment in terms of labor hours. That's a big thing that people miss out on calculating, is how many labor hours are you spending with a manual process. Yes, you may be adding an additional cost per month for a platform, but when you break down the labor hours that you're paying an individual or individuals to do a manual process, you're actually more than likely going to result in a cost savings. Labor hours are the thing that I always tend to preach. Having the HR background that I have, right, is it's something that tends to be missed. And if you're going to, you know, use all this time that could be better utilized somewhere else on your scientific research, if you're having somebody on the science team do all this ordering, think about how much more productive they can be if they get several hours of their week back. In biotech, you're ordering a lot constantly, right? It's almost daily. It's almost daily. So when you have those daily hours back, you're able to actually produce more. So you're spending a little, but you're gaining a lot more in terms of saving time relating to labor hours. So I'd say just really not forget about that, and also consider just giving it a shot. It's a quick process. You get what you put into it. And as far as the implementation, if you're organized, the implementation will go just as quickly as ours did, because the organization's already done for you between you guys and that system that you use for your project management. So yeah, it's great. Give it a shot.
That's a good piece of advice. How would you quantify? So you're talking about those labor hours. What do you think that number is for your Lucy team as a whole now ordering with Order.co?
If I'm being honest, I couldn't even begin to explain. I couldn't even calculate it, only because there are so many individuals that do ordering. Like, we have a lot, and that's what makes the process impossible to do manually. So I couldn't even give you a number, because there are so many people that do it. There's actually less people at our company that don't order through Order.co than there are actually, you know what I mean? So I couldn't even quantify it, but it's substantial. It certainly is. And I know that our scientific team, once they got up to speed, and that's another piece too, I guess I should mention, is think about just something relating to morale, right? People aren't stressed out about how they're going to get these items ordered. And I know that once they got up and running and they learned the system, it was definitely, boosted their morale, and they were able to continue to do the work that they came here to do, that they wanted to do, versus just sitting in front of a computer and logging into different vendors to order things, right? So worth it.
That is definitely the HR perspective, which is a healthy thing. Like, I don't usually get that. I speak to a lot of AP managers, purchasing managers, but definitely I love that, to think about like morale, just making everybody's lives easier. It doesn't always have to be, even though you do get ROI, the savings with the time, but just thinking from that HR perspective, just like, hey, everyone will be a little bit happier and a little less stressed. Like, that's such a win.
Absolutely.
Well, Jess, thank you so much for chatting with me and sharing your story.
Thank you for having me, and thanks for being awesome. I mean, it's been a great experience, and I can't sing your praises enough. So thank you.
Thanks.